paella and its shellfish, the Spanish tourist trade is going to go into the ground. So you desperately need our fish. We have the fishing grounds. You need the fish. You have no choice. So this is all nonsense.
So you're basically saying that you need our more markets, right? You
No,
need
I'm
European
basically saying
markets.
you need our fish.
Well,
we can sell elsewhere.
So in that
We've
case,
got the
Mr.
fish,
Coburn,
and
are
we
you
have every
advocating
right to stop
continuing
it.
it as things are at the moment, where foreign boats can fish in British waters?
What we'll be able to do is we will decide our own fishing agreements
What do
with
you want
countries.
to happen? What do you want to happen?
Well, I want Britain to decide its own fishing grounds, what we do with it. We will control that, not the European Union, not a bunch of people in Brussels. It will be controlled by Britain, and we can discuss it with our neighbours and have bilateral agreements or whatever else. I can assure you, the more problems that they create in the European Union over this divorce, they're going to store up a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, and a lot of bad blood.
Citizens should have the right answers from you, and you don't have a clear answer on anything.
Of course I do.
I'd like to, sorry, I'd just like to let Mrs. Thomas...
You desperate for fish, you can't get it.
I'd like to let Madame Thomas come in, Mr. Coburn. Madame Thomas would like to speak.
I think time to shout is closed now, and it's time to discuss and to have a win-win deal, I think, with the UK. That is on the win-win. What is a win-win deal? Win-win deal is to have for UK access to markets, for both access to waters, and I add a very important point, is that we need the same rules, because it's not possible to have access to market with different rules. If it's the case, it's not a fair competition. So, in fact, the good deal is to continue as we are. That means, sorry to say that, but because you see, for example, of course...
Thomas Ubani, he's not playing fair.
For example, what about Scottish salmon? If there are no access to European markets? What about fish from UK if there are not access to UK market? So, and what about waters? Because everybody needs, for example, the case of scallops in Normandy. It's a very good example. UK come to catch scallops in Normandy. It's not fair because in Normandy and in Britain particularly, we have a management of scallops. We install small scallops to grow, and we decided to not fishing during 6 months to protect protect the resource and the stocks. So I think it's a good management of the resource. I think
this
we
will
have
be
to
bilateral between France and Great Britain.
Well, currently it is bilateral.
Before the European Union arrived on the scene, we've been doing it for centuries. It's not a problem. It's only a problem because the European Union...
So you accept the access to waters, if I understand what you say.
On this biodiversity point...
You have to play fair. If we...
Can I just move on to this biodiversity point? Unfortunately, it's very short.
The European Union are not playing fair, and never have, and we will have the final decision on what happens in our waters.
Mrs. Hazekamp, to you.
Yeah, what we see is that the European fishing fleet has overcapacity, and what we would like to do is send these ships all over the world to fish in other countries' waters. And I think the European fisheries policy is quite destructive, and I hope that
Totally agree with you.
After the Brexit, I hope that the United Kingdom is able to have a really sustainable fishing policy in their waters. And
which is why we want to stop pulse fishing, which the European Union want, and they haven't stopped it.
Well, I think it's very important to stress that European researchers and British researchers, they are, of course, collaborating together. They have had this very close collaboration on stocks, on quotas, on TACs for many, many decades. So all of this management that we have in the EU, that's been, of course, developed together with Britain. And there is a grave concern, actually, from British researchers that this will be, that they will not have the same capacity to monitor stocks in British waters.
And I think that's
probably the most important part of environmental concerns that I have.
I would like to talk about stocks and talking about quotas, actually, because there's the issue of waters and territorial access. There's also the issue of quotas and who gets to fish in these waters. And currently, the French government, for example, does not sell. It's banned the sale of fishing quotas, but the British government does allow the sale of fishing quotas. We didn't have time to see it in our report, but we've spoken with fishermen in the UK who say that the average sort of working class family fisherman is being squeezed out by the fact that the quotas are being sold. That's not
to
a European
large
issue.
companies. Yes, absolutely right.
That's a British government national issue.
But as you say, it's a British government issue, and it's up to British taxpayers, British voters, to make sure their government do the right thing. But that's why we need to get out of the European Union, so these things are decided by British government members of Parliament.
Well, currently the British government's deciding something that the small level
we all
fishermen
know
doesn't
the
want.
European Union is not a democracy, and the MEPs in Europe have no power whatsoever. Everything's decided at the Commission level. So if you want to have a decision made in the UK, you need to have it made by your member of Parliament. And that's why we need to get out of the European Union, so that the fishermen can exert pressure on our members of Parliament to make sure they do what we want.
Linnea
And that's
Engström?
not being
Yes.
part of the
You have no
European Union.
power?
I think this is a very common problem within the European Union, actually. I've heard it from Portuguese fishermen, Spanish fishermen, Swedish fishermen. I'm from Sweden. That, you know, you use this national quota system. Actually, you don't take care of your own fisher population, and then you blame the EU, which quota setting and TAC. I mean, TACs are, of course, decided by the Council, but the quotas and how they are distributed, that's national competence. But national governments tend to blame EU for everything bad that has happened, like Mr.
good.
Coburn.
Then from now on they'll have to blame
and let me just
Westminster. I
finish.
agree with
And
that.
they don't understand that nothing good, I mean, nothing good is going to come out of not cooperating on these very vital issues that is fish stocks, water, oceans and climate. They don't know any borders.
Well, is there
At the
likely to be
moment,
more
probably the
cooperation,
European-
perhaps, Mr. Coburn? Is there likely to be more cooperation if, such as the UK clearly at this point wants to do, take back control of its waters and then start a more sort of business level negotiation rather than
course.
having it done through the European level? Is that perhaps more
Exactly.
efficient? I'd like to come to the ladies on this side of the table.
When you look at the European level, we have quotas. We have all kinds of measurements in the European fisheries policies. But what we see is that the European fisheries is not sustainable. And even a few weeks ago, the European Parliament watered down legislation and said, well, we can continue overfishing after 2020. And that is one of the UN sustainability goals, to stop overfishing in 2020. And the European Parliament says, let's continue overfishing.
Seems a disagreement from
honest.
your neighbour.
The question of sustainability, of course, is a very important question, but I think that this question is, it's better to have this question at the European level because, as you said, the fish doesn't know where
They don't have
are.
little maps
I
of
don't-
where they can go.
absolutely, they are not British or French or I don't know.
They speak fish.
So I think that it's more efficient at the European level to and I
At the
think that
European level, it's
I
not
think,
democratic.
Sorry, I finished. I think that
Let's just hear Madame Thomas' idea and then you
I
can
think
respond.
that common fishery policy is in progress if you compare before European level first. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's better to have a policy at each national level first. And second, I think that it's very important to cooperate. For example, MSY, it's a very good progress to define quotas, but quotas, as you said, don't come from European level. In fact, yes, European level, but Council, that means member states, no European Parliament. I agree with you with democracy. I think that Europe needs more democracy, but you have to progress, of course. But for the quotas, that is member states. That is not.
We all know democracy is not going to happen in
European
Europe.
Parliament.
It always gets rejected. And more importantly, what are they doing about the pulse fishing? The Dutch are walking around these issues. They haven't stopped the pulse fishing. Pulse fishing is absolutely disastrous
If you've
for our
been
seas.
here, you
And we
know
know-
that the Parliament
agree.
took a ban on pulse fishing. If
Yes,
you've been
but they
voting
didn't know.
in
Yeah, I'm
Strasbourg.
sorry, I was voting on it, and I can assure you that the pulse fishing is in trialogue at the moment, and they still haven't banned it. That is nonsense. UKIP voted very strongly on every single issue to do with fishing.
unfortunately,
And my fishermen in
I
Scotland
think we're
do
moving
not
on
want
to
to see that
another
sort of
issue
stuff.
here. Thank you all
Pulse
very
fishing,
much for all of your contributions. Many issues, of course, that we could go into. We will have to end it there. We're running out of time. But thank you all very much. Just like to move on now to the end of our programme. I'd like to thank my guests once again, Linnea Engström, David Coburn, Isabel Thomas and Anja Hazekamp, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you all for watching as well. We'll see you soon here on Talking Europe.